Hello everyone, those of you watching my presentation for the first time, my name is Abhishek Marania. A lot of my friends call me Avi. As I may have mentioned in my earlier presentation, I'm originally from Nepal. I moved to the United States a little over 4 years ago. And those of you not familiar with Nepal, it is a very small landlocked country situated in Southeast Asia, with China and India being the neighboring countries. So Nepal is mostly famous for Mount Everest and for being the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. Nepal stands on the 19th place for being the poorest country in the world. It is mostly dependent on its neighbor for a lot of its supplies, like oil, a lot of its food supplies, medicine, and many more. Since my future goals is in health and medicine, I'll talk to you guys about how medicine is practiced in those third world countries like Nepal. Due to the lack of transportation and education, people don't have access to westernized healthcare facility. That's why they choose a lot of these alternatives. So I come from a very rural village in Nepal. There wasn't a lot of hospitals and clinics at the time I grew up. The emergency services would take an average of 45 minutes to arrive to the nearest clinic, where you would get diagnosed by someone with an associate degree. And if you're lucky enough, you would get someone calling themselves a doctor with a bachelor's degree. So that's the most you're going to get in your emergency service. And looking at that, I'm very glad to be surrounded by all the best doctors and the best medical facilities in the world, where the emergency service are provided by some very experienced doctors and surgeons within 10 minutes. And that's despite of the high cost. I do understand there's a high cost of medicine in the United States. That's despite of that. Most of the primary care doctors in the rural villages of Nepal are trained for minor treatments and trauma. They're not trained for actual surgery and stuff. Yet they're pushed beyond their limits to perform actual surgeries and diagnose when required. And that is due to lack of trained MDs and surgeons at that rural area. Residents of these nearby villages only see doctors if the disease and symptoms are major, and if some kind of trauma has occurred by an accident or something. But for minor trauma, disease, and symptoms, people don't actually go see a doctor. They will just use their home medicine, and there's a lot of people actually go to their ancestral doctor. In other words, they're called Hami Chakri. So they have their own ways to perform their medicine. They do some spiritual things, and they will make some handmade medicine. And this is and they base this on their experience. By over time, their parents gave this medicine to someone, and it worked. So by the experience, they use this medicine on people. So this actually is very common in those rural places where I was born. And when it comes to pregnancy, a lot of pregnant women they rarely go to the doctor unless it's very severe and it's uncontrollable. Then they call emergency services and they'll go to the hospital. But most of the times, the pregnant women give birth to the child in their house with midwives. They're the people that actually help the woman to give birth are called midwives. And these midwives don't have any sort of education in medicine from any kind of school or university. They have gained this experience over time and received tips from the ancestors. It's just inherited. So the normal medicine expenses at these rural places are not as high as it is in the United States, but it is high compared to the monthly income of the people in that village. So I'll give you an example. My dad, he's a civil engineer in Nepal, and he's not working right now, but if he was working at this time, he would be making around $300 a month. That is half of the amount I make bi-weekly. So you can imagine how low income people are based on. And so one major inconvenience in those society is that the patient have to pay first to get those medical care. And no matter how severe the trauma is, the patient must submit a due before procedure can start. And there's several deaths in those villages because of this. Some people who don't have money, they will just try some ancestral medicine or something, and it won't work, and they will die. So there's a lot of cases, and people die from a lot of small things that could have been prevented and cured. A lot of small disease like diarrhea and stuff, those they can be prevented by a simple medicine. But people not having access to that, people die because of that. So I'll give you an example about my grandma. My grandma was she actually died because of not having a proper health care. I sit right in front of me due to the lack of skilled doctors. She was diagnosed based on an assumption, which led her to death. So that I saw her dying, and I saw her prescription and stuff. It was totally irrelevant. There are, however, good hospitals and doctors in the big cities. The private hospitals are comparatively more managed and well equipped, and compared to the public ones. There is in public hospitals there is lack of beds, medicine, and spot on doctors. But the good thing about the public hospital, they don't cheat a lot, and that's because they get paid from the government as a salary. So it doesn't matter how much does the hospital make. That's not going to make a difference on how much they make monthly. So, and actually, the public hospitals provide a lot of their citizens with low-cost care and some free prescribed medicines. So, despite of the private facility being very managed, with several highly ranked doctors, they're usually known to cheat the illiterate individuals. These hospitals are actually found charging the patients double for the treatment. They're actually also found charging the patients for a medicine that they've never taken, or for a diagnosis for a disease that they've never had. So they will just put on a bill and they will charge them for it.
So, Avi, do they have organ smuggling as well?
So that was actually my next topic. Organ smuggling is actually one of the major issue in these third world countries in recent days. Back in time, it was not that easy to just take out organ and it was preserved for so many days and you can smuggle it. But now it is really easy. It's a major issue, and a lot of doctors are actually involved in this because they get paid low and they want to make more money, so they get involved in this. And both low income both public and private hospitals are involved in this type of criminal activities. However, the private hospitals are more successful towards this kind of criminal activities because the government has no authority toward their facility. And so one of the major organs that do get smuggled is kidney. A lot of doctors are actually caught taking excessive blood from the patients. So that's actually a major... They take the blood out and they will smuggle to different countries. A lot of time different Western countries. So, and the government does a very bad job tracking down these criminals. Most government officials are caught taking bribe money to not go against this kind of criminal activities. And a lot of patients in Nepal, the place I'm from, they actually go to India for better medical care, which makes the organ smuggling issue even worse. So people traveling to Nepal are treated even worse. They're charged double, and because they know that they're foreigners, they smuggle their kidneys or blood, and they will never know. The patients will never know about it. So that's a very major issue. And so, Andy, I want to ask you something. You're from Vietnam, right?
Right.
So does the entire thing I told you, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we do not really have any like organ smuggling in my country, but there are definitely two things that you talk about very similar to my country. And the first one would be how patients always wait till, I guess, kind of like a last minute to treat. In Vietnam, we also do have a Vietnamese culture, so we do believe Eastern medicine, and mainly patients they prefer Eastern medicine first before they go to see a doctor to be treated with Western medicine.
True, yeah.
And the second point is you mentioned how doctors over there they do some misdiagnosis, and that actually happened to my family too, where my mom she went to multiple hospitals and see so many doctors because they have misdiagnosed her.
That makes sense. Totally relevant. And
So, isn't there any UN organization in the country to help out?
there's actually a lot of UN organizations. There's Red Cross and many other that actually give a lot of free vaccinations and some other medicines. Most of the time, they only provide first aid care, but they're unable to provide some intensive care when needed. So that's one of the problem that people are facing. And being a doctor for me wasn't just a passion. It was a build up by observing the circumstances from the places I grew up. And so that really compelled me to pursue my career that I've chosen. And getting a doctor title is not my dream. My dream is to actually save someone's life and learn that ethics behind saving the life. So overall, this presentation is just to familiarize you guys with the healthcare system in third world countries like Nepal, and compare this to the United States, how privileged we are. So that was it, and I'm excited to see your guys' presentation. And yeah, have a nice day, have a great weekend, happy Thanksgiving.